Good morning, everybody. I want to review what we have done so far in this course now that we are at midterm. Okay, so for the first half of this grammar course, we have spent time on verbs. We've covered all of the verb tenses. We covered modals, which serve as auxiliaries or helpers to verbs. And then we did passive, which is another way to make a verb. We have active verbs and passive verbs. So far, everything that we have done has been related, 99% has been related to verbs. In the second half of the course, we spend time on clauses. And I thought that this would be useful for you today to give you a complete overview, the big picture of clauses and how they relate to one another. And then, eventually today I will get to the focus, which are noun clauses. But first I want to do an overview, give you the big picture, and then we'll go from the general to the specific. Okay, so tell me what a main clause, what do we know about a main clause? Give me some information about a main clause. What is important to know about a main clause?
Main clause has subject, verb, not.
A subject and a verb?
And an object.
Not necessarily.
Sometimes.
It doesn't always have to have an object. Last week when we were studying the passive, we talked about intransitive verbs, verbs which are not followed by an object. It doesn't mean that it's not a complete sentence. If I say, I woke up, or this morning I woke up, there's no object in that sentence, just subject and a verb. So it doesn't require, a main clause does not require an object, usually has one, but doesn't require one. Okay, subject and a verb. What else can you tell me about a main clause?
Independent.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean that it's independent?
Complete sentence.
Did they tell you the answers?
No.
It's a complete sentence. It's a complete thought. It's a complete idea. Okay? So a main clause is independent and it is complete. That, in other words, I can say it exists by itself. Doesn't require anything else. That's what it means to be independent. You don't need anybody. Okay?
Yes.
You don't need anybody. You are complete by yourself. Okay. Okay, so that is what we know about main clauses. In this class, we have looked at adverb clauses. Okay, we have looked at adverb clauses because when talking about verbs, we talked about time. We talked about time, and to express time, we used something called a time clause, or an adverb clause of time. And those clauses are introduced by certain words. Okay, what words introduce time clauses? Give me some examples.
Often.
Huh?
Often.
No,
When.
introduces a clause. When,
At the time.
what?
At the time.
At the time.
By the time.
While, oh, by the time, okay. By the time, before,
After.
after, since,
While.
Got it?
Since then.
until, huh?
Since then.
Since then, okay. So since then expresses time, but what I want to focus on here are time clauses. And if it's a clause, that means what has to be there? What has to be there in order for it to be a clause? What is required in a clause? Go back to the main clause.
Verb.
Independent.
Subject and verb.
Subject and a verb. For every clause, we need a subject and a verb. If we don't have a subject and a verb, it's not a clause, it's something else. Maybe it's a phrase, okay? But it's not a clause. So we're only talking about clauses here. So all of these words followed by a subject and a verb, that would be an adverb clause of time. Okay? And what else do we know? What are some of the properties? What are some of the qualities of an adverb clause? Where does it go? In the beginning or the end?
Both.
Both.
Work.
Both, okay? An adverb clause of time, okay, you're right, it's dependent, that's true. Let me give the qualities in black, okay? It's dependent, what is it dependent on? What does it depend on? Not the situation.
The main clause.
The main clause. It depends on the main clause, okay? And it can go at the beginning of the sentence or at the end. The only difference is the placement of a comma. So let's get this. Placement, this pen isn't very good, huh? Placement, beginning or end. Okay, and you know the only difference, I'm gonna put that, is the comma. This is a comma. That's a comma. Okay, and we practice this with time clauses, okay, so. Before I went to bed last night, I finished my book. Past time clause. Future time clause. After I finish class today, I will go home. Future time clause. Present perfect time clause. I have liked you since I met you. Okay, present perfect. So I'm just reviewing. These are time clauses which we have already used. So all adverb clauses are dependent. They're dependent on what? On the main clause. And their placement, beginning or the end, the only difference is the comma. Now in addition to time clauses, we have other types of adverb clauses. We are going to cover them later in the course. This is just the overview. This is the big picture. We have clauses of cause. They are introduced with because or since. This since should not be confused with this since. This is cause since, and this is time since. Same word, two different meanings. Okay, so since you were late, you missed the test. In other words, because you were late, you missed the test. And these are followed, just like all clauses, are followed by a subject and a verb. We can call this a cause clause. Call that a time clause, I can call this a cause clause. Okay, we have adverb clauses of condition. Okay, and they begin with words such as if,
Whether.
whether,
Only.
and or not. Only if, even if,
Despite.
hmm?
Despite.
Despite? That doesn't introduce a clause. That is followed by a noun, like despite
Oh yeah.
this, despite it, despite that, or, okay, it's not
Even?
followed by a subject and a verb. Unless in case, and just in case. Okay, and we are going to, this is the big picture. We're going to spend time on all of these later in the course, don't worry. But just to tell you as an example, if you don't pay attention, you won't understand this lecture. I can reverse it. You won't understand this lecture if you don't pay attention. Only if, I'm going to skip only if. Even if you pay attention, you might not understand this lecture. You might not understand this lecture even if you pay attention. Unless you pay attention, you won't understand this lecture. You won't understand this lecture unless you pay attention. Okay. And here, just in case you don't understand the lecture, you can watch it later. Okay? You can watch it later, just in case you don't understand the lecture. Okay? These are adverb clauses of condition, and the last category here, for now, is cause condition is contrast. Adverb clauses of contrast. While, whereas, although, even though, though. And I want to compare, I want to contrast two things. Here we go. While this pen is purple, this one is black. Again, I can do the adverb clause first or second. This pen is black, while this one is purple. Whereas, this is like legal language, but whereas this pen is black, this one is purple. This one is purple, whereas this one is black. I can switch it, doesn't matter. Okay, so these are how adverb clauses work. They can go first or they can go second. Now, all adverb clauses, and did I get all of them? Oh, yeah. Oh, so now that. And so that. Okay, all of these words, you see there's a lot of them, all these words, introduce the adverb clause, okay? And they have a fancy name, they have a grammar name. They have a grammar name, and that name is called, anybody know it? It's okay if you don't. It's called, this word is called the subordinating conjunction. Okay? And that's, how many syllables? Subordinating conjunction. That's a lot, that's a mouthful. Okay. But I just want to spend 20 seconds talking about what this means. You don't need to remember this. You don't need to remember this, but I just want you to understand it. A conjunction means to join, something that joins. Joins two things together, okay, conjunction. And what does subordinating mean? Sub means?
Under.
Under, okay, below, or under, good. And what does this O-R-D?
Have
Order.
the step by
Coordination.
step.
What?
Have a step by step. Is
Okay,
have
yeah,
the-
okay, good. They have an order.
In a good place, order.
Order.
Yeah,
So what does it mean? This is a word that makes this order below something else. It means that the adverb clause is below importance to what?
The main clause.
Thank you. The main clause. It just means that the adverb clause is number 2. The main clause is number 1. The adverb clause is number 2. How do we do that? With something that makes it lower, subordinates it, puts it as number 2. It puts it in the subordinate position. Okay, that's not so interesting. You don't have to. No one will ask you this question, and if you ask anybody outside of actually, Juan, do you know what this is? Never heard of it, right? Okay, if outside of this class, nobody will know. It's like our own secret grammar language. My husband has no idea what this means. If I would have this conversation, it's like speaking Arabic to my husband. He doesn't understand. He would not understand it. Just like you don't, right? You're getting a lesson, right? Cut more or less, yeah. So the subordinating conjunction, I have to use this grammar language to teach it. But when the language is your own, you might not be familiar with all of these grammar terms. And I have a confession to make, although I am hesitant to make it on camera. I have a confession to make that I really did not know all of this grammar language either until I had to teach it. Because when it's your natural language, you kind of just use it. You sort of know how to use it naturally. Okay? Some people learn grammar, but they're not going to remember any of this. Actually, my high school son is learning grammar, and he showed me. I said, oh, that's what I teach, really? Okay. So, but don't worry, I am an expert now. Okay? So you are safe with me. All right. So, this word called the subordinating conjunction is what introduces the adverb clause. Okay, let's move on to, the main clause is like the mommy and the daddy, the mama and the papa. Okay, the adverb clause is the first son. What?
Nothing.
We're in a very happy clause family. This is the clause family, okay.
Who's the main?
What?
Who is the main class?
The main clause are the parents. The parents are the main clause. Okay, the parents are independent of the children. The children are dependent. Okay, the children need something. The parents are independent, hopefully. Okay, so the main clause, the adverb clause. The next clause that we have, which we are not talking about today. I am not talking about it right now. I am not talking about it. Adjective clauses. Okay, what do we know about adjective clauses? Where's my black marker? What do we know about them? Guys? Independent or dependent?
Dependent.
Okay, what are they dependent on?
Men.
Adjective.
I got a trick question.
Object.
They're not dependent on the main clause, definitely not. What are they dependent on?
Object or question?
The sub-object.
The subject.
Okay, not the subject. Okay, maybe the subject or the object, actually. They're dependent on a noun. They are dependent on a noun. Okay? Adjective clauses, which we will get to next week, not this week, but they function like adjectives. What do adjectives do? They give more information about nouns. Okay? So, my blue shirt. Blue is an adjective. Now I have two shirts. Let's talk about the shirt, which is blue. Adjective clause. Because I have two. There's one which is red and there's one which is blue. I want to talk about the blue one. So, that's an adjective clause. It depends on a noun. Which noun? The noun that it's trying to give more information about. Okay, I mean, just with my example, if I just have this, which is blue, that was my example, right? Let me tell you, I have two shirts. There's one which is blue and there's one which is red. If I just say which is blue, does this mean anything to you? No, that means it's dependent. It cannot exist by itself. It requires something. It has to come after something. What does it come after? It follows a noun. Oh, the shirt, which is blue. Now you know what I'm talking about. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay, so it's definitely dependent. It's dependent on a noun. A noun can be the subject, the object, I don't care about that. It's dependent on a noun. The noun, which noun? The noun that it's following, the noun that it modifies, cannot exist by itself. Okay, and adjective clauses, like their brother, big brother, the adverb clause, are introduced with, they're introduced with special words. Does anybody know, well, can you tell me what the words are? The words, and this is an adjective clause, the words which introduce, that's adjective. The words which introduce adjective clauses.
Which where?
Okay, what are they?
Purple.
Purple pen,
That.
which?
That.
Oh my God.
By what?
Don't give me- okay. Which?
When. That.
Okay, adjective clauses. When,
Where?
that, where,
When.
who,
Why?
whom. Not why.
Whom? Okay.
Who.
Why doesn't give me more description about a noun?
How?
Who,
If.
not how.
If.
If,
Whose. Whose.
whose.
Whose.
Okay, I think that's it.
Whom.
Who, whom, which, that, whose, when, and where. Okay, these are words that, or which, that. These are words which, these are words that introduce adjective clauses. Does anybody know, for extra points, what the name of this, what do we call this thing?
Subordination?
Good game. Good guess. Good guess. Subordinating conjunction is the special name for the word that introduces an adverb clause. Anybody know the special name? And I'll give you a hint. let me give you a hint. Adjective clauses have a nickname, okay? They are also known as relative clauses.
Oh.
And I have no idea why that is. That is the name. Okay. Anybody know?
No, what?
Anybody know what is the grammar term used for this?
W.
Okay.
WH.
What is it called?
WH.
Coordinator?
Not double H clause. Coordinator, good guess, but not right.
To describe.
Do you know? Huh? Not to describe. I just want to know. These words are called subordinating conjunctions.
Adjectives are.
Anybody know what these words are called in grammar? It's okay if you don't. We haven't even gotten there, but I'm sure you learned it already. Okay, game is over. These are called relative pronouns. Okay, it's okay. This is, again, not that important. I just want, I need the language to explain it to you, but it's okay. So these words are called the relative pronouns, and what do relative pronouns do? They introduce an adjective clause. An adjective clause then is formed by the relative pronoun plus the subject plus the verb. Are we starting to see a pattern here? Do we see a pattern? Subordinating conjunction plus subject plus verb. Relative pronoun plus subject plus verb. Okay, here we come to the final, how am I doing on time?
I think you're about 30 minutes.
This is 30 minutes? Oh boy, I don't think anybody is going to watch this.
25
if it gets-
minutes.
If it gets too much longer, okay. Adjective clause, and now finally we come to the baby in the family. Noun clauses. Okay, based on what you know, what can you tell me about noun clauses?
More,
Oh.
more information.
They're dependent. Let's start with the first one. Let's start with the first thing. They are dependent. Okay, what are they dependent on?
On verb.
Okay, they are dependent on, they are dependent on a few different possibilities. They are dependent on a few possibilities,
Subject,
usually the
verb.
verb. Usually they depend on a verb, not always, okay? I'm gonna explain that a lot, but usually a verb. Okay, they usually depend on the verb. You see this? You see how you're not gonna confuse them, because this depends on a noun.
Yeah.
And this depends on the entire clause. So they're really different. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to go into detail on these noun clauses for you. Okay, so they are dependent, let me get it. They are dependent on the verb. I'll just say most of the time, okay? Let's say 95% of the time. Okay, because they can also be dependent on a preposition. And then there are some other possibilities that I want to explain that here. Okay, how do we introduce a noun clause? What words, which words introduce a noun clause?
Relative pronouns. Relative pronouns.
No, first I'm asking, give me the words,
That.
and then I'll
The.
ask you the name of it.
The.
Okay, that,
Which.
which, wait, I want to separate them into categories, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna put that as number 3. What else?
Which.
Okay, which, here?
Where?
Oh, we don't need it.
Hmm?
Oh, we don't need any.
Well, let's not go there. Let's just talk right now about words, the words which introduce noun clauses. Some more.
When?
Who, what, when, where, why, how, and I'm gonna add more. I'm gonna say how much, how many,
How many?
How?
However.
how,
No.
how plus an adjective, How far, how tall, how short,
House
how stupid. How plus an adverb. How quickly, how slowly. I'm going to add how much plus a noun. How much money, how much time. Non-count. How many? How many students? How many computers? How many books? How many chairs? So this is how much plus a non-count noun. How many plus a count noun. Okay. All of these are ways which are terms, are words that can introduce noun clauses. Okay. One more category is whether
If.
Why?
or if. Not while. While is not here on my list. Okay. Now, does anybody know what these words are called? Adverb clauses, we have subordinating conjunction. Adjective clauses, relative pronouns. Anybody know what we call these words for a noun clause? Okay. The truth is, when the parents had this baby,
Too many baby, they can name it.
they were out of names. And they didn't give this one a name. And if you look in your grammar book, you'll see there is no name.
Nameless.
Nameless. So I have given this term a name. You know what I'm going to call it?
Nameless.
You tell me if I'm the best teacher in the world, okay? I am going to call it
You know,
the noun clause word.
Word.
Isn't that much clearer than the relative pronoun and the subordinating conjunction? What do you think? Is that clear? Noun clause word. Now you know what we're talking about, right? The word which introduces the noun clause. Noun clause word. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to abbreviate it. I'm going to say NCW, noun clause word. Okay? Because it's too long to write. Okay. Now, I have presented to you all of the clauses and their terms and how they're introduced. And you tell me, what might be confusing about all of this? I said you're not allowed to be confused about what they're dependent on. I'm not allowing that, because a noun clause cannot be dependent on a noun. It doesn't make sense. Only an adjective can be dependent on a noun. Okay? So you may not be confused. No, you can. If you're confused, it's okay. But tell me, what else might be confusing?
The noun clause word with the
Go ahead.
reference word.
It's the same?
Yeah, a little bit similar.
Okay. I think you're right. I see this here, and I see this here.
Which?
I see that here, and I see that here. Oh, did I skip whose? Whose. Whose is also here. Whose is here, and whose is here. When is here, here, and here. Where is here, here. I didn't tell you this, but there's also adverbs of place. Okay, so actually it can be over here. Okay, so that gets a little confusing because we're using the same words, the same limited words for different functions. Okay, so I think that's a little confusing. Okay, if I ask you, what kind of clause is this? Don't just say, oh, I see when, it's a time clause. No, when can be a noun clause and when can be an adjective clause when it's modifying time. There was a time when I was a child. Let me tell you about the time when I first met you. Okay, anything else that's confusing? Okay. And what's our formula here? Noun clause word plus a subject plus a verb. If we don't have all of that, we don't have a noun clause. Okay. Anybody, any questions before I end this clause overview? Comments or questions? If you don't have any questions, then everything must be understood. Is that correct?
Yeah.
This is just an introduction, it's okay. You're like, everybody, any questions?